Hello and welcome to 15 Minutes of Faith, brought to you by Inner City Women of Faith. I'm your host for today, Nicole Rivas, and our topic that we are going to be discussing today are the 10 wise and foolish virgins. Secondary title would be Knowing Your Season. Now, we find this story, and most of us are familiar with this story. We find it in Matthew chapter 25. Because of our limited time, I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm just going to summarize. For those of you who are familiar with the story, Jesus is offering a parable, trying to describe what the kingdom of heaven is like. And he says that the kingdom of heaven is like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was long time in coming, and they all, that's important, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. So all of them, both the foolish and the wise. We know what happens next. The bridegroom finally shows up after they've all fallen asleep, and all 10 of them get up and they're trying to get ready for the bridegroom. Problem, the foolish ones have no oil for their lamps, so their lamps have gone out. The wise ones have some extra oil, and so they are able to trim their lamps, have their lamps ready. And the foolish ones say, hey, can you hook us up? Can you lend us some? And they say, no. Then we won't have enough for ourselves. You should have brought some oil with you. So then the foolish ones make this foolish decision to go and buy some oil at this point when the bridegroom is upon them. And while they're gone, the bridegroom comes. Everybody who's ready goes into the wedding, the wedding feast, I guess is what they call it. But the foolish ones are locked out, and they come back huffing and puffing and are banging at the door, demanding to be let in, but they're not let in. And then the last thing it says, Jesus says, or the bridegroom says to them, truly I tell you, I don't know you. This is to the foolish ones who are banging on the doors and can't get in. And then here's the lesson you're supposed to get from the parable. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Now, if you were listening carefully, that right there should have made you say, huh? It should have left you confused. That concluding remark should have left you confused. I know we hear this passage all the time, so we kind of are on autopilot and we don't think about it very hard. But if you were thinking about this story, that concluding remark should make you say, huh? What are you talking about? Why? Because there were 5 foolish and 5 wise, right? But they all fell asleep. None of them were watching. All of them got drowsy and fell asleep. So why is the lesson watch so that you're not caught off guard because no one knows the day or the hour? If they all fall asleep, how is that the lesson? Shouldn't the lesson be, so make sure you're prepared and have enough oil so that you aren't locked out? Shouldn't that be the lesson? But that's not. Why is that not the lesson? It is not the lesson because that's not what Jesus is trying to teach us. That's the lesson that we often hear in our churches. People say, so the foolish ones, they didn't have oil, so you need to not run out of your anointing and you need to be prepared. And we go off on a tangent, ignoring what Jesus says the lesson is. The lesson is not be prepared. The lesson is, I'll read it for you, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Now, there's a couple things you need to understand to help you get why that's the lesson. Well, the first one is that when it describes the virgins as foolish and wise. The word there, wise, does mean wise as we understand it, but it also has another meaning. It means someone who's able to recognize seasons. Again, someone who's able to recognize seasons. Now, the Hebrew people would have been primarily an agrarian society, people who farmed. So why would they equate wisdom with being able to recognize seasons? Well, when you farm, if you can't recognize when it's time to plant, and when it's time to harvest, and when it's time to let the plants grow, if you can't figure out when you need to plant corn as opposed to potatoes, guess what? You will starve. But a wise farmer, one who can recognize what season it is and what they should be doing in this particular season, will prosper. So in that kind of society, the ability to recognize what season it is going to be equated with wisdom. That being the case, we get that what this story is really trying to teach us about the kingdom of God, using this example of 5 foolish and 5 wise virgins, is that it's trying to teach us about the difference between Christians who understand how to recognize the season and Christians who don't. Those who don't are foolish. Those who do are wise. Now, here's the other piece you got to get to understand this. How the weddings worked in that time. The bridegroom would not show up by himself. He would show up with his whole family. In fact, his whole village. And all of them would have lamps. So there was plenty of light. The 5 foolish virgins, it would have been nice if they had their lamps. It would have been nice if their lamps were lit, because that was the tradition. And if their lamps were not lit, they'd probably stand out and be embarrassed. But guess what? They didn't have to have lit lamps. They didn't have to have them. But they decided they didn't want to be embarrassed. They didn't want to stand out. They didn't want anyone to call them out. So in the season when they should have been preparing to meet the bridegroom, they decide in that season to do what they should have done in a different season. Hear me? They decide in this season to go back and do what they missed in the last season. And as a result, they missed their harvest. They missed the bridegroom. And there was no getting it back. Now, we are in a time with the church where there is a lot of upheaval. We cannot meet the way we used to meet. Things have to be done differently. We're not used to all this virtual church or, meeting, but we're scared to meet because somebody might be sick. There's just a lot going on. And there are people in the church who are foolish, who do not understand the season. And so all their energy is focused on going back to the way we used to do it, even to the point of suing the government to force them to allow churches to reopen. They're trying to buy oil in the wrong season instead of being aware that God is doing something new. God is doing something new. And they need to open their eyes and not be so focused on what God used to do or how we used to do it, and start looking to see how God is moving in this season. So the word for the church is open your eyes. Do not be a foolish virgin looking back to what you should have done, what you could have done, how we want to be normal again. Open your eyes and be a wise virgin and look to see how the bridegroom is moving. You don't have everything in place. You don't have the Zoom account. You don't have the cameras. You don't have anything ready because you weren't prepared. You didn't hear the Lord say something was coming. The trick to that is not to then go back and try to wish that you could do what you should have done. The trick is go to the bridegroom. Say, my lamp has no oil. Tell me how to work it out, because the bridegroom is more important than the missing oil. The bridegroom is the oil and everything else you need. Everything you need. And on a personal note, we know what the church needs to do. Look for what Christ is doing now and follow that. And on a personal note, all of us know about not doing what we should have done in a certain season and then turning around in a different season and trying to do it then. We know about being single and being so depressed and sad and upset about being single that you didn't work on yourself and prepare yourself for marriage, so that when your husband or wife showed up, now you're in the midst of the marriage trying to fix all the things you should have fixed when you were single. And trying to do marriage, which has its own challenges, and try to fix yourself at the same time can be a little rough. And some of us, like the foolish virgins, want to jump ship and try to redo single when we're in a different season. That's not the answer. The answer is go with your empty lamp and say, Lord, I know I should have been working on this when I was single. I didn't, so fill my lamp. Show me how to do it now. Show me how to do it now. Those of you who didn't get the education that you should have gotten when you were young, and now you have kids and a mortgage, and in order to advance, you need that degree, and you can't figure out how you're going to balance them all. You can get frustrated, you can get mad, keep looking at what you didn't do back then, or you can recognize that season's gone. I'm not going to have the opportunity to do it like I could have done it when I was 19. I'm in a new season, but guess what? My lamp is empty. I don't know how to get an education and keep doing my life. Guess what, bridegroom? My lamp is empty. Show me how to do this. Whenever you've missed a season, the key to making it work is not to go and try in your own strength to redo what you didn't do. The trick is always, what does it say at the end of the story? Therefore, keep watch, because you don't know the day or the hour. Therefore, keep looking for the bridegroom. Stop worrying about the past. Stop worrying about what you didn't do, what you should have done, what we could have done. Stop that. Keep watch. See what God is doing now in this season and follow that. Thank you so much for joining us for another week of 15 Minutes of Faith. I am Nicole Rivas, and this show is brought to you by Inner City Women of Faith. You can find us at innercitywomenof.faith.org or on YouTube at Inner City Women of Faith. Same thing for Instagram and Facebook. Just look for Inner City Women of Faith. You can also find a video of this program on YouTube at Real Talk for Women of Faith, or on Facebook at Real Talk for Women of Faith. We love you. We're praying for you. And we're so happy that you keep coming back to see us. I mean, I get excited. So thank you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.